Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you today. My name is Dustin Cormier, and welcome to How to Rock Astrology. Today, we're going to be talking about what it's like when your sun in your chart is in the sign of Gemini, and Mars in your chart is in the sign of Aquarius. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to talk a little bit about my own sort of spiel on the sign combination. And then eventually we're going to be reading from Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega to get a little bit of a visceral, sexual, personality level experience of what the sign combination is like. I like to unfold the astrological backdrop and then sort of give the lived experience through this erotic reading. So, yeah, welcome. I hope you guys enjoy. Now, usually when I do these videos, I usually start with my own sort of spiel. I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer. One of the things that I'm trying to do with my channel is interpolate the Vedic astrology gnosis and mix it in with Western astrology. I am a Western astrologer really at my roots. And I practice Vedic astrology, but it's tropical Vedic, which means I don't bring the signs back 24 degrees like some sidereal Vedic astrologers, or that whole thing, the signs don't go back. For me, I use the same measurements, same dates as Western astrology, but I interpolate I interpret the chart through the ancient ways of Vedic astrology. Part of that is my idea that Aquarius, which is where Mars is here, is anciently ruled by its primary ruler, Saturn. Saturn ruling Capricorn and Aquarius, because every Venus, Mercury, and Saturn, all three of them rule earth and air signs. It's going to be very important to our discussion today. As a Western astrologer, I would consider that Uranus is a secondary rulership, where Saturn is primary. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about Mars and Aquarius, check out my Mars and Aquarius video at the start of the series. So a big part of what we're going to be talking about today is the fact that there's a funny, bummer, but also it's like two negatives that are going to make a positive. What I mean by that is that the Sun and Mars don't usually do as well in air and earth signs. But when they're both in an air and an earth sign, in this case, they're both in air signs, and Mars and the Sun are actually they're trine to each other. Since they're best friends, they are of the same consciousness, agency, directive, which means that they are going to help each other because they're both in air signs. So it's good that they're both in the same alchemical element. It just sucks that a fire and water centered planet like the Sun and Mars don't do as good in air signs. Now, I'm just going to break this down a little bit. This is sort of my Vedic astrology coming through in this lesson. Think of this, okay? Have you ever noticed that Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and it's an air sign? Now, Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. It's an air and an earth sign. Venus rules Libra and Taurus. It's an air and an earth sign. Saturn rules Aquarius and Capricorn. It's an air and an earth sign. Right? This is because Venus and Mars and Saturn are best friends. They all get along together, and in the Vedic reckoning, they kind of jive to the same tune. It's the external, earthly, logical, objective detachment outside of oneself. Learning the ways of earth, the ways of relationship, the ways of the one mind interconnecting with the world and the minds outside of itself. So what Venus, planet of communication and relationships, Mercury, planet of mental reasoning and organizing and managing, and Saturn, the collective consciousness arbiter, the first chakra, security, capacity to exist and survive in the world, through the world, in the ways of the world. Venus, Mercury, and Saturn all kind of jive to the same tune. So, on the other hand, we'll notice that all the other planets rule fire and water signs. Sun rules Leo. Moon rules Cancer. Mars rules Scorpio, which is water, and Aries, which is fire. Jupiter rules Pisces, which is water, and Sagittarius, which is fire, right? So all the fire and water planets are grouped together, and all of the earth and air planets are grouped together. Now, fire planets do better when they're in fire or water signs, because that's their natural way. Here, the sun is in Gemini, and a bit of its power is lost to the scatterment of the mental grip that it has to have on rules, on regulations, on communication, on trends, on information outside of the self, on data, resources, managing communication lines, managing organizations. Gemini is good at doing these kinds of things, being a messenger. And whenever you're the messenger for someone else, it's just hard to transmit your own message. It's just the way of any sun sign in an earth or an air sign. But, you might have the sun in the 10th house, or with the 10th lord, in which case, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to project onto the world, and you could be a messenger for your own message in the same, this is just the sun sign in its sign. There's much more to astrology than that. Of course, you should know that if you're watching my videos. But I digress. The sun being in Gemini, being in an air sign, it does diffuse the sun's strength a little bit. Mercury is neutral to the sun, and the sun it's close to its exaltation point still. Its exaltation point being Aries, because exaltation works by proximity. This means that when the sun's in Gemini, there is a witty, sort of like tongue-in-cheek self-reliance. Gemini can be funny in how they can be selfish, but the self-interested or the self-orientation of all the signs that are around Aries for the sun. This is what gives the sun strength. Sun is exalted in Aries and has exaltation energy in Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Pisces, and Aquarius. Still close to its exaltation point. So it's kind of still orienting itself towards its own spirit. Except in Gemini, it's has a sense of itself, but now it's experiencing, how does my sense of self relate to the world? Because you're paying attention to the world, you're paying less attention to yourself, and the material world and its rules and its laws and social trends are always changing. That's why the sun's investment in Gemini can be scattered. It loses a bit of itself because it has to pay attention not to its own nature and its own inspiration from within its own soul, but it needs to learn how the world works. It needs to learn how Steve works in order to best relate to Steve and to get Steve on my team for what I want to do, right? So the sun, I would say, is kind of like neutral in Gemini. It's moving now. It's headed towards Libra at this point, so there is some debilitating factors there for the sun. It's mercantile class here, as opposed to the strength that Aries represents. But. Here we have Mars in a neutral but leading to better than neutral. Mars in Aquarius is a better than neutral sign. It's being reined in by Saturn. This Mars is being reined in by Saturn. And Saturn is going to work together with Mercury, the sun's Mercury nature. Since Mercury, which rules Gemini, and Saturn, which rules Aquarius, they're good friends because, Gemini and Aquarius are in a trine together, right? They're both air signs. So of course they would work naturally, harmoniously together. Here, Mars is likely actually trine to the sun, The Sun is actually gripping Mars and giving Mars a little bit of impetus, as well as Mars is giving the Sun a little bit of impetus. So what's happening here is that Mars is getting a grip on something. So the Sun is the king in every person's chart. So this is your ego, this is your personality, which you seek to project at a constant basis in order to get around in life in the most easy way as best fits your nature. In terms of your conscious nature, the way you apply yourself to the world and to your own ambition. Here in Gemini, the Sun is applying itself in a light sort of way. It does best when it kind of is enjoying the tumbling, the slow, meticulous tumbling of some kind of structure or the unfoldment of knowledge, the unfoldment of experience in some way or another. It takes things easy and it enjoys recreationally waxing on the many varieties and pathways in a certain field of experience. It grips that field of experience or that skill, that world, whatever it is, and it kind of just enjoys just wading through the reality of opportunities. Gemini's favorite thing is to have some kind of project which has a solid basis, a solid identity, and they think, what can I do? How can I ring around the rosy and help my friends, help my company, help my group, help my project, help my own creative enterprise, find all the pathways, all the possible ways of expressing what this group entails, what this project entails. Now that's all fun and games and good, so long as the wandering does not obstruct as long as that wandering is being an conscious intention for the purposes of some lasting intention. If you're just going to squirrel around with this Mercury energy through the Sun your whole life and you don't ever build something solid, you might have a good time, but like Gemini actually loves Mercury, and it loves to establish logical, rational foundations which ultimately get things to build, spin faster, higher, easier. They want to feel like things are actually getting easier and easier because they're putting effort in ways that are making things work all together nicely and ergonomically. So with that being said, if they don't have something to build on, then they might do more wandering than finding, which is part of their journey. And it's just the way Gemini is. The strength of your Mercury, because Mercury is going to be the channel for your Sun here. If your Mercury is strong, then you will find things that are intelligent, lasting things which you can find opportunities within, which you can squirrel around in order to add all these cool things to this central thing that you're building on. Mercury in Taurus will do this. Mercury in Gemini will do this so long as it's not combust the Sun. When the Sun is combust, then you might have an ego which pushes willfully and in an impulsive way to do something which might actually not be as well thought out as it could have been. If you have a strong Mercury with good aspects from friends, if it's got an aspect to its best friend Venus, or to, if it's got a trine from Jupiter or a trine, or if it's conjunct the benefic moon, well, the moon's not a good example because the moon damages Mercury. If it's got trines from benefic planets, all these things, if it's headed more towards Virgo, which it's bound to be headed towards Virgo here, which is part of the reason why Gemini is not a bad placement. It's so, if Mercury is well placed, then it will, all this squirrely wandering that the Sun does will add up and lead to proper, solid, interesting places that actually build resource and wealth in order that you can do more of that ease that Gemini loves to do. The point here is that Mars in Aquarius has a willfulness, an a rebellious streak, a bit of an ingenious and intuitive, cerebral willfulness and intent. It's the Mars in Aquarius, being ruled by Saturn, that is going to fasten itself to logical opportunities, logical skills that it can apply itself to in reliable ways, in its own revolutionary sort of way. This is a Gemini who can be very creative and has an instinct for its own self-expression because, Mars is in the 9th sign from the sun here. So the sun being in Gemini, it's Mars, because the sun is the king, and Mars is the general, the right-hand man of the sun in Gemini. So this Gemini sun, ego, needs to get the best out of its recreational enjoyment capacity, but it needs to have something solid, something gripping, some kind of forceful activity in order to act on its intuitions and to explore, to really explore what Mercury in Gemini sun wants to explore. Gemini sun might tread lightly in its whole exploration. It might not ever actually take it anywhere. This is a Mars in Aquarius, which has the discipline, because Saturn, which is Mercury's best friend, is reining in the animal impulse of Mars, holding it so it can wait. It can wait until the Gemini finds the perfect opportunity, the perfect connection, the perfect networking opportunity to apply this strong, willful, cerebral energy, the fixed Mars in Aquarius energy. And it will be fixed in a smooth, easy, ergonomical way. So the Mars here can work hard, has the capacity to stand up for itself, give directives in social situations based on the intuition that Gemini feels and the data and research that the Gemini has meticulously put towards whatever is the mutual regard, the mutual agenda for everybody involved. Mars in Aquarius is trying this Gemini and gives Gemini a strong right arm and a sword with which to penetrate into the places it wants to check out. And because the Mars here, Mars is action. Mars is our logical, rational way of getting the ambitions of the sun. This sun will enjoy waxing and exploring the fixed set of skills and opportunities that Mars in Aquarius holds itself to and disciplines itself to attain. And there'll usually be some kind of creativity involved in the sense that, the sun in Gemini is in the 5th house from the Mars in Aquarius, right? Mars in Aquarius needs it wants hobbies to apply itself to. It wants to channel its individual energy in a revolutionary, rebellious way. This is a Gemini who's probably got a job, works for a company, or does its own thing, whatever it is. You do something to stay alive and make money in a relatively smooth and easy way, and you find somehow at the end of your workday, you're probably constantly making little notes for your personal projects at home. And you're doing your job at the same time, multitasking, right? Then you get home, 6 p.m., you finally have the time to work out your own personal hobbies. And then what you can do is you apply yourself diligently to these under-ebbing channels underneath the surface of your regular career or whatever it might be. And you build on, and you can do this probably because you have the strength of Mars in Aquarius. So when it's Friday and your boss tells you, you probably work very hard for your company, whoever you're working for, because this, again, you're willing to do that because, like, when the sun and Mars are in fire and water signs, they're more self-explosive, and they might not actually have as diligent a time. They're working towards their own interest and self-intrigue, and they're willing to, screw the boss. I've got to go by my own intuition and instinct. Gemini, and this Aquarius can be even like that mentally at some level, but they want to have a security of the world that they're in, the company that they're in, the relationship that they're in. So, so you might be able to say to your wife, your partner, hey, hon, I know I promised you that I'd be able to see you on Friday night so we could have that date that we've been wanting to do, but an opportunity just came at work for me to go and get an opportunity, a job, or to make a little bit of money for the job and for my boss, and to make myself a little bit of money for us. So I know I promised you that we'd be able to do our date tonight, but I'm going to stay at work an extra 3 hours, and I'm going to come home late, and we'll work it out, honey. And if you've got a strong Venus and a strong moon, then you'll be wanting to build emotional trust with your partner, and then they'll tell you that that's okay, and then you'll be okay. If you don't have a good strong Venus and a good strong Mercury, then you might just say, honey, screw you, I've got to do this for the job, and I'm the one who makes the bread and the butter, so you're gonna have to deal with it. And then your wife or partner will have to deal with that. And you can apply yourself aggressively to make these kinds of deals. Or, ideally, if you've got a strong Venus and a strong moon, then your relationships and subjective fulfillment between relationships will be important, as it should. And it can. Just because you're these two air signs, all mental, doesn't mean that you won't have deep relationships, because this is only the Sun and Mars. This is how you apply your yang consciousness, right? Doesn't mean you don't have a yin receptive consciousness that can still be empathic within that application. But no matter what, you'll be willing, when you need to be serious and rational and detach yourself from your emotions to your wife or your partner and say, honey, this is better for us in the long run. And you'll stand up for yourself if you know that that's true. And if you've got a partner who appreciates the air signs in you and they've got air in them, then they'll appreciate it. And they'll understand that we made this promise, but this is an opportunity. Rock and roll. Do it. Right? At the same time, you'll also be able to tell your boss, I know you'll be able to wrangle it so that, look, boss, I need Friday off because I have an opportunity to go play with my band on Friday night, and I need to be off early. If you let me off 3 hours early on Friday, I'll put in an extra 5 hours to make up for Jerry's whatever on Thursday that he needs to go and do. And I'll work in that extra hour so that I can get the time off on Friday. You can work these kinds of things out. And you'll say to your boss, I already told Jerry about it. Jerry knows what's going on. And I can do this for you. I'll be there at the time, And so the Gemini knows all the people in its work. And the Mars and Aquarius will assert itself to use and move and bend the people in its environment to get the most out of essentially what this Gemini wants to do, which is to explore the best of its own resources and opportunities in mind and skills and talents and intuitions that it can. So that's, we could really see that the Mars and the Sun are kind of tuned to the same purpose here in a lot of ways, which is essentially that the Gemini wants to have the time. Whatever it is that you're doing on Friday, that you're holding off for, that you've taken time off for, probably has something to do with some way to use your Mars and Aquarius skills that you've been holding on to. Let's say it's your band or whatever, right? You've got this show. When you go to this show, this is an opportunity for you to enjoy what Gemini was seeking to do, which is to explore a new live opportunity, to explore making networking connections with other bands, to build on what this unique individual original Mars and Aquarius is secretly building on. One of the little many channels that are underneath the surface of your easygoing Gemini. So it's a great sign combination. And these two planets are in pretty good places. The Mars and Aquarius really helps to get a grip on Gemini's easygoingness, right? And when it comes to personality, we see that the same thing is at play here. I always do a little my own spiel on these sign combinations, and then I read from this Erotic Astrology book to give us a bit more of a lived personality experience of the sign combination. And we see that there's an easygoingness to Gemini here, which is also allowed to be outrageous, a little bit like heavily witty and sarcastic. This person can be heavy-footed with their insults, with their dry remarks. If the Mercury is well placed, then it'll ultimately be positive. And if there's not too much bad energy going towards Mars, if Mars is frustrated, if Saturn is aspecting Mars, or if Mars is being drowned out by the Mercury and is actually, if the Mercury is trying the Mars, that's actually not a good thing when that happens, because Mars's mentality is wrapped up in Mars's aggressiveness, and Mars overthinks what it should be doing, and then it can get like flustered and it gets angry at thinking when Mercury is aspecting Mars, because Mars and Mercury are actually enemies. But if this Gemini, if this Mercury is well placed, then you will be easygoing, and your easygoingness will still be useful and practical. And the Mars in Aquarius will help to lift it out of its scatteredness. Speaking of scatteredness, I don't want to lose my train of thought here. Ultimately, the Gemini Sun here is well served by the Mars in Aquarius. I guess what I was going to say is that Mars and Gemini can be so easygoing and quick-witted in the way that we know of Gemini. And the Mars in Aquarius here will be able to be easygoing and even like wry. This is what I was trying to get at, is that like Gemini can be so witty and so true, and they know that some of the things they can say are almost like could hurt someone's emotions and feelings. But Gemini is the first person who will tell you that you got a piece of spinach in your teeth. Hey, you got a bit of shit in there, man. Yeah, that little thing there. Yeah, everybody can see that. You should figure that out. And that kind of terse sharpness can be funny. It's the funniest thing in the world when you see Gemini doing that thing that they do. But they do it because it's true. Sometimes some things don't need to be said. And your Mercury, this is what I was trying to get at, is that if your Mercury is well placed, you won't burn your friends out with this communication. It will be useful. It will be prudent and will be important, so that the person with spinach in their teeth can take it out and go, oh, thank you, Gemini. I appreciate you being that hard. And that can be taken metaphorically for deeper things. When the Gemini in you sees that a person is in something, that they're being crippled by an emotional thing, their mother is like haranguing them or harassing them or something, the Gemini be like, wow, you should really like stop that, or like just stand up to that bitch, or like the Gemini will be real like that. And the person will be like, how can you say something so heavy? And just, just my feelings, And Gemini will be like, especially with Mars and Aquarius here, there's this shotgun rifle, especially if that person's a part of your team. Because Mars and Aquarius does what it does for the Gemini Sun, because the Mars is the general who's applying itself for the ego of the Gemini. Gemini wants to be the messenger to the team. So the Mars and Aquarius will just right arm and be strong and say, you are messing with our team by doing this. And if you don't stop, I'm going to be hard about it. Again, they're easy because it's air. It's Gemini and Aquarius are technically light. They don't really want to cause tension. They make these hard statements in order that they know that objectively it is going to reduce tension down the line. It'll make everybody happier. We just deal with this thing right now. It makes them an incredible part of a team, an incredible communicator for things that need to be said. Just make sure that you have a little bit of water in your chart, a little bit of empathy, so that you don't actually cause whoever, there is an emotions have their logic too. And if you are too wry and clever and true and funny to something that somebody can't take the joke, and they leave the team, and they were actually an important part of the team, everyone's going to look at you saying, you didn't apply yourself in the best way there, right? But ultimately, this is a Gemini who's witty and who's willing to be witty, who's willing to be funny, who's willing to go into some crazy places mentally and erotically, opening themselves to novel ideas about where they can go and who they can be. They can be good communicators, and they can keep a job, they can keep themselves disciplined, especially if your Saturn is well placed. If your Mercury is well placed, you'll be useful in all the things that you do with your energy. And your partners, if your partners are good for you, if you have a good Venus and a good moon, you'll find partners who appreciate how you can be matter of fact without being too over the top. Fire's more over the top. You find that even middle where you can be over the top when you find it convenient and functional. And it will be functional. Typically, mostly. As long as you got positive aspects to these planets and to their dispositors, it basically will always be functional. Now, I've given my own spiel about this. Let's see how these archetypes manifest in the personal relationships and erotic relationships. This is Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega. We're going to talk about what this Mars and Aquarius brings to that Sun in Gemini. So, Sun in Gemini with Mars and Aquarius. The charming and quick-witted individuals born under this combination are sociable and easygoing, but wary of any situation that makes you feel emotionally vulnerable. It's true, although again, I would say that if you have a good Venus and a good moon, then you'll understand that emotional vulnerability is part of the thing. You just won't. You work best when you're not needing to be emotionally vulnerable. If you're with a partner, there's times where you're going to need to be at that level. You'll need to be careful. Don't say too much to your partner that might tear them up in harsh ways. You don't need to say every single thing that comes to your mind. But you know, after that's done, after the soft part is done, ultimately you can't wait to be like lighthearted again and to say what's on your mind and tell them that, hey, you got a booger under here, you know? Hey, honey, let me just grab that booger for you. Oh, you feel better? You know, that kind of just craziness, that's how you want to work. But just because you have Sun and Mars here doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can work, right? This is only Sun and Mars that we're talking about. So what I'm trying to do with these videos is try to show you guys that you can't just read that the Sun and Mars are in air signs and that you'll be completely emotionless. There's more to the chart than just Sun and Mars. As an innovative lover and an inventive bedmate, you're always open to novel ideas for sexual experimentation. Once you get going between the sheets, you're a skillful, considerate lover, intent on heightening the pleasure of both partners. However, it takes more than sex to hold your attention. If your lover is unable to have an intelligent conversation and some juicy, witty banter in between things, you'll probably swiftly lose interest. This is what invites and whets your passion, your active yang passion. When involved in a committed union, you are loyal as long as your beloved respects your need for personal space and individuality, and to allow you to flit around, to have the Mars and Aquarius capacity to say, honey, I'm going to this party at this social gathering and I need to be by myself in order to connect with this people for these reasons. Again, as long as you develop emotional trust, you'll be able to do those things with your lover. As much as your mind might want to just have a complete control of that, again, you'll know this if you've got a good Venus. You'll just know that you can technically have the power and strength to have complete autonomy with your lover if you want to. But something tells me you won't keep that lover for very long if you apply yourself to love that way. But I digress. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was Sun in Gemini, Mars in Aquarius. Juicy combination in my opinion. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. If you guys enjoyed this, leave me a like, leave me a comment. Feel free to subscribe because I got more stuff, more videos coming out, especially lately. Been working really hard in this COVID 2020 season, and I can't wait to fill the coffers with much more cool, fun things for us to enjoy. Thanks a lot for watching, folks. Keep your eyes on the skies, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Whee!